So, lately I've been seeing a lot of watch channels build their own custom watch, and I felt inspired to do it myself, but I've never built one before. I've heard many horror stories about first-time watch builders, from like broken seconds hand, scratching a dial, or just something going wrong with it. So the big question is, will I make the same mistakes as a first-timer as well? Let's find out. My name is Koda and welcome to God Tier Watches, where we talk about everything about watches from top 10s, discussions, and I guess my first watch build. And before I go any further, all these parts and tools that I used will be in the links in the description and are all from AliExpress. So maybe after this video you'll build the confidence and buy your own parts and build it yourself. It's worth the challenge. I'll also link other watch parts, hands, case, dials, just in case you guys don't like the ones I've used for this video, just to give you guys a couple of different options. But without further ado, let's get building. Before I get into the details of what kind of watch I wanted to make and my personal criteria for it, let's actually talk about what goes in a watch build to begin with. So firstly, with any watch build, you'll be looking for a watch movement. This is the heart of the watch where it continues ticking on one's wrist, and as a first timer, I recommend using Seiko NH series from NH35, NH34 for the GMT version, an NH38 with no date position, or something of an NH70 that is used in those skeleton dial watches. Next up is the case. You're going to want to pick a case that suits the style of the watch you want to make, in which case I will mention the style I want to make later in the video. Now the case of the watch could practically make or break your watch build. So choose wisely, as case sizes vary from small to large, and in my case, I'm gonna go for small because I've got a very small wrist. And obviously choose accordingly with the style of the watch build. Additionally, you'll next want to consider the handsets. These are obviously what tells the time, and these should complement the dial and should follow a relatively similar theme to each other. And again, hands come in many shapes and sizes. You got from long, short, thick, thin handsets, and some that have loom and some without. So keep in mind, if you're going for a dressier piece, maybe you don't need loom. If you do go for a diver, you'd probably want some loom on that one. Following the handsets and the case, you'll want to find a dial that also suits for you. Think about the color you'd like, the texture on the dial you like, and what kind of logo you want. Do you want sterile or a logo on that one? And also consider how much loom you want on your dial, if any. Finally, to piece everything together, you'll want to consider the strap choice, either a bracelet or a standard strap. You can choose from different materials of rubber, metal, canvas, nylon, all sorts, and honestly, you can always have different options, but a general rule is to try to get a metal bracelet that matches the case, as it is a quick, easy swap with a strap, but not so easy to find a bracelet that has a similar finishing to the case. Now we know the 5 basic things to the watch, let's talk about my dream watch criteria. Now I wanted to make a stylish everyday piece for this one, something I could wear every day going to work, at home to give myself a boost of confidence to push through the day, or just something to wear when I'm going out and about, just casual with friends. I wanted something sharp and elegant, with a case that complements the pop of color that I wanted to add on the dial, along with a nice, sharp, elegant handset as well. So for the parts, as I mentioned, I will link them in the description down below if you want to pick them up exactly of what I got, but here is exactly what I chose. Now the case I chose came with a metal bracelet and chose a fluted bezel at 36mm case diameter that's perfect for my small and skinny wrist. And to make things easy, I chose the NH35 movement as I wanted the date wheels shown and has many tutorials on them on how to install them. The handset I bought are these guys, and I feel like they suit the theme of sharpness and elegance, and finally I'm so happy I was able to pick this dial up, but unfortunately it came with a logo and I didn't know it was a Grand Seiko written on it. I personally wanted a sterile dial, which I didn't know at the time because they always blur it out, and it's not even listed anymore on AliExpress. So now that we got all the watch parts, let's talk about the tools we're going to be using for this watch build. Using these tools are very important for the watch build. It can literally, again, make or break your build. And don't try to cheap this out, just buy the parts, buy the tools needed. It's not expensive, you're literally on AliExpress to begin with. So starting with tweezers, I recommend using ones that have plastic tweezers on the ends with the stainless steel build for a bit of sturdiness, but not strong enough to scratch the dial. The thinner the tweezers, generally the better. You'd use these tweezers when you have to apply a bit of pressure onto the movement to release the stem, when you have to place the hands on. They basically are such a useful tool to get into those little spaces that our fingers can't. So this is definitely a must-have for your build. Secondly, I'll bundle this all as number 2 because you can get this all in one nice little pack together on AliExpress, but you want hand press tools to apply the hands, and they come with different diameters, so you want to make sure you use the right diameter when you press the hands and seat them properly onto the movement. A case cushion to seat your movement and not leave it on the surface where it may be dirty or could cause the movement to break, as these are very fragile little things. An air blower / puffer to remove any dust resting inside the case, the dial, or anything related to your watch. You want to use the air blower every step because the last thing you want is when you finish your build and see a small speck on your dial, so do it right to save time. Next, a tool I highly recommend using to accompany your tweezers are some rotico. This little sticky, almost blue tack like putty is used to apply seconds hand or to move specks of dust and debris to clean it up. It's very handy and you can use it almost like a pointy hand to clean everything up as well. Next, an extra pair of hand removal tools with a protector to prevent scratching your dial will come handy, especially if it's your first time and incorrectly placed your hands and you have to remove it. Another very essential part to the watch build is making sure your fingers don't actually touch the watch dial or anything related to your watch inside the movement. You want to make sure you use these things that look like finger condoms. I'll call them finger cots, as you don't want your watch build to look like it's been through the trenches, chucked in oil, unless that's what you're going for. Finally, some extra stems for your crown to fit would not hurt, as you may cut it a bit too far, so it saves you from having to wait again for the part. They're cheap to buy, so just get them. Now that we've got everything out the way, let's get to the build. Now the first step here is applying the dial onto the movement, and that's after you put your finger cots on. Don't forget about that. Place the dial and align the feet where the movement is, and sometimes you have extra feet that you have to remove to change the stem and crown alignment, but for me, I'm going to put the crown position at 3 o'clock, so it was easy as that. Just apply a bit of pressure evenly and you'll get that nicely seated onto the movement. Pretty simple so far, right? The next step is where my shaky hands didn't come into play very nicely, but before I get into that, I first need to set the time into 12 o'clock. I can do this by pulling the crown to change the time, and I want to change that time just until that date wheel position changes, and that's when you know it's reset it to 12 AM. Now I can finally put the handsets on one by one, starting off with the hour hand. Keep in mind, doing something like this for the first time is very nerve-wracking. My hands are shaking so much, so I recommend just taking it slow and steady. Don't apply too much pressure unevenly. And yeah, I was not used to this at all, so if it's your first time, don't worry too much. Here I used my trusty plastic ended tweezers and some rotico to make sure that it's aligned at the 12 o'clock position. And of course I used the hand installers, the biggest diameter, to apply the first hands on. And pretty much it was pretty simple with the hour hand, and the minute hand was a bit more difficult, but I managed to do it without too much trouble, which was pretty good for me. But the part where everyone struggles is the seconds hand. Everyone seems to be breaking the pinion, breaking the movement, pushing too hard, uneven pressure, heaps of issues. Out of all the hands you can put on, this is definitely the hardest one, as it's got a tiny hole to put through the seconds hand, and you don't need much pressure to put this one on. And honestly, the first time I tried to do this, I took 20 minutes to try to put it on. I was just stressing because I didn't want to break it. So I got my girlfriend to help me out with the watch build, and she was able to pretty much put the seconds hand on within the 5 minutes. And you can test if it's on just by making sure you press the crown in, and you'll see the seconds hand ticking. Yes! Just make sure every single time you apply each hand, you try to wind the watch and see if it sweeps smoothly there, just to make sure that nothing is hitting. You may want to use something like a loop as well to just help you out. Because the first time I tried to apply these hands and finish the watch build, I actually didn't apply them on properly. The hands became really loose. I never actually applied it enough pressure, and so it would just naturally fall off by gravity. So don't do what I did and actually use a loop just to make sure you see that it's evenly seated properly. Just ensure that you don't have to redo the steps again, because I was stressing knowing that I had to redo everything again because I saw those hands just flopping around. So save yourself some time and use something to magnify. But honestly, once the hour, minute and seconds hand were on with the dial, wow, this was amazing. It looked so beautiful. It was like beyond what I was expecting. I was super happy, and I'm glad I haven't broke anything, which a lot of people seem to struggle with secondhand, and yeah, I'm really happy with that. I did all the hard steps. From here onwards, it's pretty much easy. Just make sure you align the dial into the case straight, just so that the crown can be easily inserted into the 3 o'clock position. Just make sure you tweak the movement bit by bit, making sure nothing is slanted before going further. Since I bought a transparent case back for this watch build, I wanted to showcase the rotor off with the movement, and I bought this really nice textured blue rotor sticker to put on, and yeah, I just thought this would be really nice to showcase the rotor and the movement off. This isn't something you have to do, it's just something I chose to do just to add a bit of touch, bit of character to it. But next you want to cut the stem provided with the case to cut it to size, just enough room to push the crown into the watch to screw the crown down. I didn't have calipers to measure the actual distance to cut, so I had to eyeball it and cut it bit by bit, which is why you'll see me cutting it multiple times, but eventually on the 6th time I've got it. I also used a bit of sandpaper to sand it down just so I could fit the crown and stem easier together, but yeah. Now that the case, the crown, the dial was all finished, it was time to pretty much waterproof this watch together. You want to use a gasket grease on the O-ring and also putting some silicone grease on the end of the stem to seal the watch together. Make sure you wipe off any excess, you don't want any of that silicone grease inside your watch movement, it could ruin it. But the watch build is now complete. All that's left is adjusting the bracelet to my skinny wrist, and here is my custom watch build, everyone. I personally think I nailed the criteria of creating something every day, having a nice sharp and elegant watch, something I can wear casually, something I can wear at home, something I can wear to work. But what do you guys think? Do you hate it, love it, or somewhere in the middle with it? Let me know in the comment sections down below. This is definitely a passion project of mine, just to build a watch. Never thought I would make one. It was really fun, just gathering the parts and building it together. It's such a fun thing, especially if you love watches. Bit of creativity, bit of fun. As mentioned, I have linked everything from the tools and the watch parts down below, and I've also put down other recommendations from the watch case, the hands, the dial, that aren't what I made today. So if you didn't like my current watch build, I've put some down below for you too as well to look at. It is affiliate, so help support the channel, so thank you for using the links if you do go forward with them. Now, I finished this watch build in a couple of days because unfortunately life outside my watch channel does exist actually, so it took me 3 hours in total, but realistically speaking it should take an hour or less once you make your first watch build. And I'm happy to say I'm a lot more confident to build a watch now that I finished one. So if you'd like me to make another watch build, smash the like button. If we get 300 likes, I'll make another style watch for you guys. But I hope you enjoyed today's video. Very different style to what I normally do with my top 10s, but being a lot more hands-on with this one. But I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you for watching God Tier Watches. My name is Coda, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye for now.